Michael Dowling is my grandfather. I'm Barry Pritchard. I'm 83 years old and I'm his oldest grandson. He died in 1921, which is before I was born. The stories I've heard I got from my grandmother, from my mother, from my aunts, and from other relatives that knew him. Michael Dowling was born poor but Irish in 1866 in Huntington, Massachusetts. And both of his parents were immigrants from Ireland. His mother died of consumption, what they called it, consumption at that time. So Michael was left without a mother at the age of 10 and traveled around with his father. He was they were on river boats. His father worked in Chicago, they worked in St. Louis, so on. And he was on his own and self-sufficient, self-supporting from the age of 12, if you can imagine that. And Michael eventually got a job herding cattle, taking care of some 500 cattle on the Dakota border and near the town of Canby. After the summer was over, he wanted to go back to the farm where his horse was going to be boarded for the winter and say goodbye to his horse. He hitched a ride on a lumber wagon. I suppose that was a flatbed with no sides to it. Well, that's when the trouble started. This terrible, terrible blizzard started. They ran into just a screaming storm front of snow. And the horse became disoriented and the men became disoriented and the wagon got off the road and it hit a furrow in a plowed field. And Michael Dowling fell off the back of the wagon. And he tried to run and catch up with the wagon, but he couldn't do it. And so he was lost, stranded, alone, in the dark, in the middle of a huge, terrible blizzard in 1880 on the prairies. He wandered around and wandered around and wandered around until he finally found a straw stack. And he crawled head first into that straw stack and spent the night there. When he woke up in the morning, there was a house not too far away. And he tried to get to that house. He got up, he took a few steps and he fell down. He got up, took a few steps and he fell down. His legs were frozen solid, like blocks of wood. When he finally got to the house, the farmers thawed him out and sent for a doctor. Fortunately, the doctor, Dr. Andrews, was a Civil War doctor who was very experienced on the battlefield and doing surgery. And he did a wonderful job then of amputating Michael Dowling's legs, both legs below the knee, the left hand, and all the fingers except the thumb on the right hand. He had lost all his possessions. He owned a horse. He had 5 head of cattle of his own, this 14-year-old boy. He had $200 in the bank. He had had to spend all his money, sell his possessions to pay for his medical bills. There was nobody to take care of him. Just some families in the town of Canby were taking care of him. So finally one day he was called in, he said, come up, the county board wants to interview you. So he was called before the county board of commissioners. There were only 3 men on the county. 2 of them were Norwegian farmers. One was a lawyer from out of town, or from out east. And they told Michael, they said, well, you don't have to worry about anything, Michael. the county is going to be able to pay for your care. And we found a foster family, and you can go live with that foster family, and you don't have to worry, they'll be taking care of you for the rest of your life. And that got Michael's Irish up. That was the most definitive moment of his life. He had to make a choice between whether he wanted to be a victim, taken care of by somebody else for the rest of his life, or if he wanted to have confidence and believe in himself and see what he could achieve on his own. He said, no, I will not take your welfare. I don't want welfare. I'm not a cripple. He said, I'm not a cripple. Give me 2 years, 2 terms, just 2 terms at Carleton College and buy me a set of artificial legs, and I will never, ever take another cent of government money again from the county or anybody else. And that was the beginning of his remarkable life. When he finished Carleton College, he took several different jobs, but he eventually became a teacher in a one-room school out of Renville. And he was very active in a lot of things. He owned the newspaper in Renville, started the newspaper in Renville. He was always wanted to be first with everything. He was the first one in town to have a typewriter, modern technology. He was the first one in a one-room school to have a microscope for the children. He was the first person to ever own a car in Renville County. It was wonderful. You know, can you imagine? Here's somebody, really handicapped, and suddenly he's got a car, and he can go anywhere he wants. And they used to call him Michael the Wooden Man because he had his wooden legs. But he said, I got a car, I'm Michael the Mechanized Man. Was the first person to ever drive a car from Minneapolis to Yellowstone Park. And my mother was along on that trip and took pictures, which are pictures I used in the book I wrote. He also was sent on a special mission, a secret mission, I believe, to the Philippine Islands during the insurrection that followed the Spanish-American War there. He was the secretary of the National Republican League, and he was a major fundraiser for President McKinley. So President McKinley appointed him to go over there on a special mission. His cover story was that he was there to reorganize the schools, the public schools, because they'd been Spanish schools before. They're going to reorganize them to be American schools. My grandmother, Jenny Bordwick, her father had been one of the families that had taken Michael in after he was frozen. And she was working as an assistant editor to the newspaper in Granite Falls. And my grandfather was publishing the newspaper in Renville. And the two of them happened to go to a newspaper convention together down in Atlantic City. And while they were down there, they went bicycling together and did different things. And they decided to get married. So they were married down in Atlantic City, and they came home on the train together. And that's how he got married. The family was kind of surprised because they always figured that he was going to marry Hattie, which was Grandma Jenny's sister. But he didn't marry Hattie, he married Jenny. And then the county organized, the Renville County, and they made Olivia the county seat. So he moved from Renville to Olivia because it had become the county seat. And then he became a partner in the bank there with the O'Connor family. The most inspiring thing is the Dowling School in Minneapolis, which was named after him, was originally a school for crippled children, is now an urban environmental learning center, but still has about 20% of the children there are, about 1 in 5, are special needs, handicapped, or disabled. He inspired other people to be what they could be. And that's how you really measure him. It's not what he did, it's how he inspired other people. He was so remarkable. He'd tell people, believe in yourselves, be all you can be. Nobody is a cripple as long as your mind is clear. He always told people, he said, from the neck down, you're probably worth minimum wage. But from the neck up, your potential is unlimited.
This program on Pioneer Public Television is funded by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund with money from the vote of the people of Minnesota on November 4th, 2008. Additional support provided by Mark and Margaret Yakel-Julien in honor of Shalom Hill Farm, a nonprofit rural education retreat center in a beautiful prairie setting near Windham in southwestern Minnesota. ShalomHillFarm.org. The Arrowwood Resort and Conference Center, your ideal choice for Minnesota resorts, offering luxury townhomes, 18 holes of golf, Darling Reflections Spa, Big Splash Water Park, and much more. Alexandria, Minnesota. Explore hundreds of lakes, trails, and attractions for a great vacation or a place to hold an event. ExploreAlex.com. Tri-State Brain and Spine Institute, with locations in Alexandria, Edina, Crookston, and Maple Grove. Doctors dedicated to evaluating and treating all types of brain and spine problems, no matter how complex.